Welcome to Rallen's Rant. Today I'm joined by George Hood. George currently holds the world record for the longest plank at 10 hours and 10 minutes and 10 seconds. George is also a former Marine and ultra-endurance athlete. And that is the first time I've done an introduction in which I feel slightly out of breath after doing so. But anyway, George, I hope all is well. And thanks a million for taking time out to come on the show.
All is good. My pleasure. Happy to join you.
No worries, and thanks again. To start things off, I just want to talk briefly about just where you were born, the time you grew up.
I'm originally from Indiana, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
For reference, it's a small town about 50 miles northeast of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
That's where I was born and raised. That's where I went to high school. That's where I went to college. Got my bachelor's degree there. I was commissioned as a Marine Corps officer right out of college, and went on active duty. And for about 4 years, I was an infantry officer stationed at Camp Pendleton, California, and got out of the Marine Corps in the spring of '84. I picked up a master's degree along the way in criminalistics, forensic science, and was hired in late '84 as a special agent with the U.S. Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Spent a few years with them, and then I transferred over to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, where I was a special agent with them for the better part of 15 years or so. Was promoted to a supervisory special agent, and I retired January 1st, 2008.
Okay.
And after that, I did a short gig as a law enforcement professional consultant type advisor with the Marine Corps unit over in Afghanistan for about 6 months, and then returned and got in late '09 and got full-time into the fitness industry.
Like, what are some of the memories you can recall from your early days as a kid growing up and a teenager? Like, is there any memories or any situations that stand out to you?
Yeah. Yes, actually, as I reflect on it, growing up as a kid, I was the oldest of four kids, and nothing was ever good enough. I grew up. My situation at home wasn't abusive whatsoever, and there are kids out there that were far worse off than me. I was quite blessed with a fairly decent childhood growing up, but I was a little bit of a wimp, I guess. I wasn't very outgoing, and it was all I could do to finally land the lead in the ninth grade musical of Charlie Brown, in the musical "You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown." That helped. It helped to set the stage for what was later to come, I suppose. But no, I always felt I was behind the power curve, and I always felt like I had to do more. That nothing was ever good enough, and my parents kept insisting, "Why can't you be like the neighbor kids? And why can't you be like this guy and or this girl and do this or that?" Okay. So I kept achieving. So achieving has always been my thing. And that manifested itself later on in my life with the setting of world records. I've made 15 official attempts, and I've been successful on 12.
Which is a pretty good return, I suppose, isn't it?
I think so.
And you're saying there how you always wanted to maybe be the best you can possibly be.
Yeah.
You wanted to kind of spur yourself on to reach certain heights that maybe other people weren't exactly confident that you could. Yeah. And you mentioned previous that you went on to become a Marine. Like, was that an individual decision, or was a member of the family or friends, or was it something you took from a film or inspiration? Like, what made you want to become a Marine in the first place?
Well, I struggled with trying to find, what I was going to do when I graduated high school. I knew I wanted to go to college. That was kind of part of the game plan. My father wanted me to go see the Army recruiter and enlist in the Army. And that wasn't for me. I wanted to be a Marine officer. So I went and saw the Marine recruiter and got enrolled in that particular program and went on to college in my hometown and graduated with a bachelor's degree in government and public service, and then went on active duty right after that. But I'm the first Marine in my family. And since that, I have 3 sons, two of whom are Marine officers.
Wow. Okay. Like, what were some of the learnings, or more precisely, like what sort of training did you have to undertake in order to officially one day become a Marine Corps officer? Like, was there anything in particular you had to
Well,
pass? Like, what sort of things did you
yes,
have to overcome?
yes. The Marine Corps is it's they're a physical outfit. That's the outfit you want to join if you want to fight, right? And
Yeah.
that's nobody does it better than my beloved Marine Corps. And it's very physical, and there is a physical fitness test, which the acronym for which is PFT. Uh, it consists of a 3 mile run that you have to do in 18 minutes or less to get 100%. 20 pull-ups to get 100%, and 80 sit-ups. Or I think they've recently changed it. It was 100 sit-ups in 2 minutes. Well, that sit-up requirement is now no longer, and in January of 2020, I don't know if you saw the article or not, but the Marine Corps has adopted the plank pose as an alternative to
Okay.
the sit-up in the PFT protocol, which is a big step for the Marine Corps. But I had to prepare for that, so I started training in college. I ran a lot and worked on the stuff that was going to get me past the officer candidate school. 2 6-week summers down in Quantico, Virginia, in between my sophomore and junior and senior year. And my kids went through the exact same thing, and it hasn't changed. But very arduous, a whole new experience for me. And I grew up quick. I really did.
Imagine, yeah.
You know,
And if you mind me interjecting there, like, you've gone on to achieve world records, as you've said,
mhm.
but at such a early age, just finished your college degree. Was that really the first time you were made reach that, not so much the physical point, but that mental point? And I'd imagine those times during that training, whether it was through the running or early mornings, whatever, was there ever times where you suddenly were just questioning yourself if you were made out to be a Marine, or was it just such a strong positive mindset that you always knew you'd reach the finish line at that early age?
You know, my Marine Corps career was I wish I could go back now and do it all over again. I could probably do it a lot better. I probably wasn't as mature as I needed to be a fully successful Marine officer. And because I look at what my kids are doing now, and they're much further ahead than I ever was. But you know what? I survived, and I enjoyed my time in the Marine Corps. And just the brotherhood, the physical training we did, tremendous experiences. It got me overseas for the first time, and so I got a lot out of that. A lot of good experiences, a lot of different billets, a lot of different jobs. So the breadth of experience I got in the Marine Corps, certainly no regrets there. But
Okay.
I knew I was not going to make it a career. I got out upon my obligation service, and then went on from there. But it was just training. It was I didn't get serious about mindset and getting the job done and surviving until I really started getting into the record setting business, especially some of the
Okay.
endurance work I did, where the longer you go, the stronger you got to be, not just physically, but mentally.
So you're saying, when back in the early days when you're doing your marine training, it was more so youthful innocence and maybe ignorance that was driving you forward, rather than the deep understanding you have now after years of training and years of understanding especially the mental as well as the physical side of it. But we'll
That
dive a bit into,
that's a good way to put it. That's a good way. That's a good analogy. That is.
but we'll get into that in a bit more detail in later on in the show. But just the last thing I want to touch on, like, post Marine career, you then became, as you mentioned there, a special agent for the Naval Criminal Investigative Service.
Uh-huh.
And just for some of the listeners here, whether it's in the UK, like, what sort of work or detail did you get into when you were working there? Because as you said, you retired in 2008. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So like what sort of work did you do as a special agent for them? Like what would your day to day consist of?
I was a general criminal investigator, special agent type. Every agency has criminal investigators, and I was a special agent working in general crimes. I tended to migrate towards the drugs narcotics squad work. I enjoyed that. I was good at it, and I worked a lot with informants and drug cases, and that I found those to be rather intriguing. Running operations, trying to catch the bad guys, and ultimately doing some undercover work. Some of which was long term, and then there was some short term assignments I did, and then getting back, I was in Hawaii initially, then I came back to California and ran more stuff there. And again, that was an experience. A lot of lessons learned, but certainly I was on top of my game, and I excelled at that. And because it's initiative work in the drug business, you don't have complaints. Most cases, criminal cases, you have somebody makes a complaint, you go investigate it, right? Well, in the drug world, you rely on your initiative. They're initiative cases, and you have to have informants in the right places who can get into people and make cases for you. That's the big difference, and I always enjoyed that. But dangerous.
And when you were doing,
we did okay.
I could imagine. And when you were doing that work, was that situated in a certain state or area, or did you move from city to city, or was it based in one area?
NCIS, I was in Hawaii and in Southern California when I was attached to the San Diego office, which is at Camp Pendleton. And when I went with the DEA, I was out of the Chicago office, and I went to DEA to work larger cases, international cases. And DEA afforded me that opportunity to do so out of the Chicago Field Division here in Chicago. And that got me from California to Chicago, and worked here and spent my whole career here. Was fortunate to work cases internationally where I got a lot of travel overseas to Europe, to Mexico, Switzerland, Greece. We had a lot of fun doing it, and but a lot of hard work. But it wasn't all me. It was part of the task force. We had customs agents, IRS agents working with us, the U.S. Attorney's Office. So those kind of team building things, and going after the bad guys was really what I enjoyed.
And I'm sure there was a long list of them in that sort of work as well. It was never ending.
And they're still around. They're still there.
Exactly. So when you go on, you retire, as I said, in 2008, and like once you find yourself outside of the world of investigation and having a consistent maybe worry or a consistent objective by being in a job, how, like from that transition period to say when you started attempting to do these world records, when you started getting into training quite intensely, was there a period of rest? Was there a period of reflection as to what you wanted to achieve in your remaining years? Or was this a straightforward switch from the working world to, okay, let me start doing some things that can help raise money for charities and foundations and really test my body?
I was on the job with NCIS doing an undercover operation. At the time, I set my first Guinness World Record for the rope skipping marathon. It was an event we did in Honolulu, Hawaii back in 1986 at the YMCA. And it was a fundraiser for the Heart Association and the YMCA there in Honolulu. And we set that record at 13 hours, 12 minutes, and 11 seconds. And that's when I started to get a taste for the endurance kind of stuff that I like doing. And I did that record despite having, being in the middle of an undercover operation.
Yeah.
I'm still, I didn't care. I don't know many bad guys that sit up and watch the news at night, so they wouldn't know. You know,
could have blown your cover as the really fit guy
fine.
just broke a world record.
We're fine. You know? But then I took a hiatus for a little bit because I was working, and it wasn't until I got to Chicago and started training again on a stationary spin bike, and proceeded to set 3 world records on the stationary spin bike. The only guy to ever do that, and most time on a spin bike, right? And
yeah,
I did that toward the last year and a half, or last 2 years or so of my time with DEA, and those were very successful fundraisers. And then I retired and pressed on from there, and just continued just set world records, train, and look for the next big event.
So it was a pretty seamless transition. It was more or less, as you said, you did a bit when you're still working, and then once you finished the work, it was like, right, now I've got the freedom and the license to liberate myself and go and really actively challenge these things and get after them. And as you referred to there, a lot of these things that you've done have been to help raise awareness or to raise money for foundations or charities. Like, is that the sole reason you got into it and pursued it and motivated you, or was there other reasons too?
I like the word you used. I found it rather liberating, because I still think I'm haunted by my childhood experiences of nothing was ever good enough, right? And but trust me when I tell you, I have overcome that. And, but I was convinced very early on, in 2007, when we started setting those spin cycling records, two in 2007 and then one in 2008, right before I went to Afghanistan. And putting the time into those was a real commitment. It was then that I realized I wasn't going to do those events just to do a physical event and make it the George Hood Show. No, it was about, I was adamant that all my events going forward would be to raise awareness and to raise money for a charity. Now, that becomes a little bit more of a burden in terms of the work involved to put that charity piece together, and hope that your event will raise awareness, draw attention to the cause, so that people will come and witness, hopefully a world record event, and donate in support of the cause. I'm doing my part, right?
Yeah.
So that gives my events a heart, and I like that. I like being attached to various charities, mostly law enforcement or military type organizations are who I tend to gravitate to, that I can do this for, and we do okay. We're a grassroots operation. We've now blossomed into what's known as Team Hood. That's the brand that when I go to town, or when I go to an event or to do something, it's the Team Hood organization that steps up and supports me at the platform and helps me on all fronts to pull it off and help it, be successful. But the fundraising is that's got to be part of the mix.
So, I suppose with the main attraction being the world records, and as I mentioned there, you have the world record for the longest plank.
I do.
Being held at over 10 hours, and I must congratulate you personally for having that. I could only dream of doing 2 minutes, let alone 10 hours. But like, how does one even begin to think about doing such a feat and also preparing? So like, do you have to change your body composition? Does your diet have to completely change? Do you want to be completely stocked up with food and hydrated? Do you want to lose loads of weight? Do you want less water weight? How does the whole thing work from a few weeks, few months preparation? Let
me just give you some background on the plank. The plank category, it was back in 2010. I was curious if there was a category for the plank, because I was trying the plank as part of my own fitness program, and I wondered if there was a category for it. And while the closest Guinness World Records would come to the plank was the push-up. Well, I wasn't about to do that record yet anyway. But the plank, I had a client of mine actually at the club say, hey, not for nothing, but there's a new Guinness World Record for the plank. I said, oh, seriously? So we looked it up, and as a point of reference, the first Guinness World Record for the plank was set by a guy in the UK, pretty close to my age. I'm certain he was at the time, and 19 minutes and 58 seconds was the first Guinness World Record for the plank. He wanted 20 minutes, but he dropped with 2 seconds to spare. And he was raising money, as I recall, for the Cancer Society. And tremendous respect for that gentleman. And when I saw that, I said, okay, now I can train for this. And the training is simple, quite frankly, aside from not getting into various specific programs and so forth. You have to do the plank, okay? You have to start doing it and extend your time. So in 2000, and that was in the late December 2010 is when that first plank record was set. So in 2011, I started training and doing the plank and liking it and watching my body go through changes and learning some of the muscles that were being used that I've never used before. And I went through all the growing pains. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a trainer. I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of supporters that were with me going through my stuff and my ordeal. My first plank, when I laid it down at the club, was 5 minutes. I remember shaking just like everybody else does, right? And cramps in the stomach and all that good stuff. So then I started that. I started working up from that, and went ahead in 2011, December 2011, I had a window of opportunity where I decided to go ahead and set the Guinness World Record for the plank at 1 hour and 20 minutes. And we did it right here in Naperville, Illinois. And the adjudicator was on site, and it was Philip Robertson was his name, good guy. And all those adjudicators at Guinness World Records are good people, at least the ones that have showed up at my events, because they see the hard work that goes into them, and they have tremendous respect for not just the athleticism, but the fact of the support crew that comes around to make these events possible. And but 1 hour and 20 minutes was the record, and that went viral, and that formed the basis of things that were about to come down the road with regard to the plank. And it just got bigger and better.
Yeah, so the bit of momentum was created by suddenly 20 minutes seeming impressive, and then, someone's done over an hour.
Yep.
And then people are thinking, how far can we stretch this? And probably little did they know it'd be 10 times the amount. But was it there and then you were thinking, okay, I can get 5 hours, I can get 10 hours? Or were you thinking, maybe I could squeeze another 10 minutes out of that?
No.
Like, in other words, like how did you,
what
was your mindset
now you're starting to talk about setting goals, and so the next opportunity came along in 2013. I had an opportunity to raise money for the Heart Association down in near Cincinnati there, and we again had the adjudicator come out on site, and we set the record at 3 hours and 7 minutes and change, something like that, 3:07, and we had it certified on site. And now that I damn near doubled what I did in 2011, and so this idea of goal setting was now linked to training, and how much training you put in determines what goals are realistic and what goals are achievable. And I coach a lot of people on that specific topic now. You're only capable of so much, and your training will dictate where you'll end up as for what can be a realistic goal to achieve. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you there. Like, you you just touched on it briefly there, saying like your approach to training, and there's only so much your body can achieve. But loads of people tend to suggest that when the going gets tough, or however you want to phrase it, that the average person would quit at only about 30-40% of their actual potential, or their actual maximum effort.
You're right.
So like you enabled your body to go above and beyond what is considered normal by so many normal people.
Yes.
And how did you create that within your body? But then also, I'm sure there was mental barriers that you had to overcome time and time again.
Yes, it was it all goes back to training. And so you have to start setting up your sets and your training program and start doing more plank time. I refer to it as keeping track of your set counts and putting the time in. And then the more long planks you do, like the 120, then the 307, you start to come up with what I refer to as margins. That should I do another event based on what I've done in the past, this is what I could realistically expect to achieve. And so I would press on. And as a result of the 307 record, I had an opportunity to go to China in 2014 to participate over there and set the world record at an event sponsored by Men's Health in China. And that would be the first of 2 trips I would ultimately take to China and showcase the plank. And so we decided to go to China in 2014, and we set the new world record there at 4 hours and 1 minute. And that's when I realized that this was going to be my training regimen. This is what I was going to continue to do. That plank record in China, that changed that country. That got China planking. That record brought the plank mainstream. There was an article written by the Wall Street Journal by a reporter in Beijing who made the comment. The headline read, Marine veteran teaches Beijing how to plank. That's exactly what I did. Think about that. That plank changed that country in terms of how they view the plank. It's now it's no longer, it still is a yoga pose, but now it's bigger and better, and now people are seeing it as a functional fitness pose. And it's gone mainstream. And that all started in 2014.
Like when you say there, like they even viewed it as like a yoga exercise. Did you find along the way, and as you said, you set so many records in different times that gradually were going up the ladder in regards to length and how impressive they ended up being. Was there any failed attempts? Was there any times where there was a bit of hype built up of saying, "Oh yeah, George is going to beat his old record," and you turned up, you started the plank, and after maybe 30 minutes, you're like, "Hang on, this doesn't feel good at all," and this could end in 5 minutes, and ultimately ended in failure.
You bring up a memory. Yes, I've had that experience. I've had that experience. And I'm going to share it with you because it's I don't often get a chance to do this on this forum. But not with the plank. However, on the stationary spin bike, I had 5 attempts on the stationary spin bike record. I was only successful on 3. The one ride we did when I came back from Afghanistan in 2009, I trained up for an event we did in the spring of 2010. It was a fundraiser for United Way. It was being promoted as Hood's going to set the 300-hour spin bike record. The current record was like 200 hours, I believe. At the time, it was way overrated. I went in there way too cocky, way overconfident. Training didn't match what I was capable of. The whole endurance work that I thought I was doing correctly, I was not, especially from a nutritional standpoint and staying fueled properly. And I refer to that event as the failed ride because we didn't make it. I crashed at about the 175 hour mark, something like that. And total shutdown, total meltdown. And it was a lesson learned that I'm very proud of. we didn't make it. So we had to call Guinness World Records and tell them not to send the adjudicator out. And it was what I refer to as the failed ride. The crew that was there, I thanked them all for helping me to fail. And I don't mean that in a bad way. That needed to happen. And there was a magical moment that happened that night when it happened at about 3:00 in the morning, when we knew the end was near. And I was on the bike. I stood up on the bike. I could see people's mouths moving. I couldn't hear a thing. Everything was silent. And I recall having this conversation. You can believe what you want to believe, but I believe in a higher power that's far greater than George Hood. And this conversation I had was put to me in such a way that, okay, hotshot, this event is over. You're done. If you continue, you're not going to go home, and you're going to come home to me. So I got the message real quick, and I sat back down on the bike, and it was over. The technical reason that the event was called and stopped was because I didn't make the required 12 miles in the hour that I needed to get each and every hour on that stationary spin bike. So the event was over. And I remember being taken off the bike. Everybody, of course, goes away. And then that morning, about 6 a.m., everybody, some of the diehard crew types are still there, making sure I'm okay. And I'm basically resting and recovering, waking up, and mostly everybody at that hour, we know who's at the venue. We know who everybody is. Let me tell you a story. There was a gentleman that walked in to the venue wearing a dark colored trench coat, overcoat, and a hat, carrying a white cup of what turned out to be coffee. He's walking in, and I looked up at him, and being in law enforcement, I'm quick to know if somebody's friendly or not friendly, right? And
exactly.
So this gentleman seemed friendly, and everybody's kind of looking around, and nobody knew who he was. He walks in, and he makes eye contact with me as I'm sitting there on the edge of this mattress that I was crashed on, and he looks at me with this warm smile, sets the cup down, and looks at me directly in the eye, and he winks, and he makes the comment, "It's okay. I just came by to make sure everybody was okay." And that's when he winked at me, and he turned around and was gone. Literally gone. To this day, Richie, nobody knows who that gentleman was. I have no idea. I wish I knew, because I believe that was a messenger sent down from above to truly make sure that I had learned my lesson and that I was, in fact, okay. Wow. Life changer for me going forward. That brought the faith component that's a part of my events home to me. Now it's real. You don't do anything on that platform. You don't do anything extraordinary if you don't believe in a higher power greater than you that facilitates your success. You understand?
No, I completely get you.
A lot of that has enabled me to survive. And I've been setting, 12 world records now? And so long as I believe that I'm serving a greater good because of the gifts that I've been blessed with to do this stuff, then I'm good. I'm real good. And I will be successful each and every time. Because I know where that energy and that gift, those gifts come from. And to that extent, I have been successful. And that's what I impart to others. But that story, you can hear a pin drop when I lecture and I share that story in a room. It's very true.
Yeah, but no, I had to listen to every single word. You had me thoroughly engaged, and as you said, it was ultimately a profound experience that came from ultimately a failure and a massive moment in your life that, upon reflection, became a success in one way, if you look at it that way. And like taking that forward to your most recent accomplishment and world record, where you set the record for the longest plank ever. when you achieved that, when got over the 10-hour mark, when you completed that, was like, I haven't heard anything since. Are you thinking, let's try better this again? Or are you looking at that record going,
Well,
okay, I can sit back and enjoy proper retirement, so to
well,
speak?
that was a great fundraiser for the YMCA, and that was the plank record was just the first set. I had created a new category. See, when you're in the record setting business, you start getting creative. So you come up with categories, and I created what the 24-hour marathon category. The objective being to see how much plank time a human being can accumulate in 24 hours. So, and the marathon rules are as put forth by Guinness. You're allowed to take as many breaks as you want, but the clock keeps ticking. So we decided, the crew and I talked, and we decided that we were going to let set number one be the new plank record. We would surpass the 9/11/01 record that I set on the USS Midway in San Diego in 2016. A very memorable event for all the right reasons. We would surpass that and set the new world record at 10:10:10, then take our first break. And I went ahead and did that and did an additional 12 sets for a total of 13 to set the new world record for the most plank time ever achieved by a human being in 24 hours at 18 hours, 10 minutes, and 10 seconds, spread out over 13 sets. So you can do the math. You can figure out how much plank time I was accumulating, per hour and so forth. You can crunch those numbers, but that
I don't know if I want to.
that was a heck of an event. To go through the night, that's the first time I had experienced nighttime. Since the spin bike rides, where I would go for a week at a time, sleep deprivation. And the thing about endurance work is when you go day after day without sleep and you're putting up with all that, the situation doesn't get better. It gets progressively worse the longer you go.
Yeah.
So I was used to that. My body had been trained to be up. It knew what it was like to be up through the night. So going into this particular record for 24 hours, I can do this. Sure, I can. I've been there. And with the crew that was there, we didn't have a crowd at 2 o'clock in the morning. Not many people are going to come and watch, come to the YMCA and watch a guy plank,
Yeah.
But the crew stayed, and I'm forever grateful for them and for their significant others, husbands and wives and so forth, who facilitated them being able to come to the Y and stay with me through the night. My executive director at the time, Eric Knowles, former Navy SEAL guy, he was there through the night. Led from the front, led by example, stayed through the night with me and a couple other folks that were there. And I tell you, that helped. One set after the other. The agony of it all, the pain in the elbows, my elbows were all torn up. It was quite the ordeal. But 2 world records in 24 hours. It hasn't been done before until I did it. But we did it for all the right reasons, raising money for the Urban Warriors program, inspiring the world, inspiring those kids, inspiring the YMCA. Because they've never done that before. That YMCA has never hosted a Guinness World Record or a world record attempt like that before, ever. So we made history. And I'm very proud of that. I was their fitness director at the time. So that was my way of raising awareness to health and wellness, which is one of our core values at the Y, and spreading the good word. And again, raising attention and drawing attention to the value of the plank pose. And that event got the attention of producers at ABC, who subsequently brought me on the show to tell the truth. That show just aired about 2 weeks ago here in the United States, across the country, and all because of the plank. They had to figure out who was the new international world record holder for the plank. And what an experience. That event has just opened up so many doors for me. And it also got me back in touch with the Canadian, Donna Glavatska, who had been training with the plank and now was going to take it seriously. She had applied to Guinness World Records to set the female record for the plank. And she was serious, committed. She trains like no other. So I mentored her along the way, and I knew she was capable. Always believed she was capable. Um, and
when you say capable, so this was one of the first, or well, since she went on to set the record.
yeah.
Like, how do you know when you're looking to say Dana, for example, that you were like, okay, she has got the physical and mental attributes required for her to go to these boundaries, these mental barriers, and overcome
Mm-hmm.
them. And to follow up on that kind of question, like what technically or what aspects of her training did you help her while preparing for the record attempt?
Well, she found me through her son 4 years ago when I did the record, the 5:15:15 record out in California. Uh, a huge fundraiser for the Marine Corps. But she found me after that, and her first plank, I think, at that she had been planking before that, before she met me. But when she reached out to me, she had done a 25-minute plank challenge at her complex with some friends of hers, and that was my first clue. Okay, she's got something documented, and she taped it. She videoed it, so the proof was there. A lot of people tell me they do a lot of this or that, but if I don't see the tape, like in law enforcement, we say if it's not written down, it never happened.
Yeah.
So that was the first clue that I realized she might be capable. She became a part of Team Hood as one of my cognitive coaches, helping me with my mental conditioning and mental thought process as I would get into these things. She was capable of. She ended up. I went to Montreal in the fall of what was it? 2015, and got her through an hour plank. And then she was a little over an hour, but she kept moving the bar forward. So she was showing results,
Yeah.
and she was training to get those results. So from a coaching standpoint, I look for that. It's not just talk. Now she's starting to walk the walk. You understand? And
Yeah.
that means a lot. Very, very few people can do both of those things at the same time. A lot of people talk, but many do not walk.
Yeah.
You understand? And I call them out on that, and they pretty much just leave me alone, and that's fair. So, but Donna,
Yeah.
she was in the game. She was committed, and after that June event, she got more committed. And her yoga practice that she is involved in, she is so disciplined. She trains like a Marine, so I can respect that. And she knows how it is to work hard, uh, treat the body with respect, feed it well, nutritionally and mentally, and you get results. And she did just that. And I spent better part of 8 months with her preparing her for the event she just did here in May, where she set the world record for the women, and got her through all her long planks. They're all required. You have to go through them. It's just like training for a marathon. You got to do those long runs, right? You got to do the same thing with the
Yeah.
plank. You've got to put your time down on the mat. So I helped her with that, and just like I had my crew surrounding me, I was her crew. I stayed there with her, and sometimes her son would join us, and I got her through her long ordeals. So I knew she was then prepared and she was ready. That is the definition of being capable. And then she delivered that package on May 18th here in Naperville, Illinois, with a time of 4 hours and 20 minutes.
Once you broke the record.
Yep.
And you were saying there with regards to her training and always meeting so much her goals and maybe your expectations, but is there any kind of insights you can give with regards, like, did you have to tell her you need to eat this and that? Did she need to lose or put on weight? Did she need to start consuming more or less water? Like, what are some of the, like, because no average person can just go, okay, I'm just going to start training and become a plank expert. Is
No,
there
Donna,
serious adjustments you have to make?
No, she was cut out for it because she does yoga. She's an accomplished yoga enthusiast. She has a teacher certification for one form of yoga that she does, and so she knows what it's like to to train and
Yeah.
prepare. So her diet, she's vegan. She has transitioned to the vegan diet as of now, and it works well for her. The advice I gave her was continue to, you stay hydrated. You take, there are certain supplements you can take to facilitate, strength for the muscles, things you can feed the muscles. It's all over the counter stuff that you could buy at your local vitamin shop. And you make that combination of stuff work for you. And she did. And she did. And those choices you make in that regard, with what you feed your body to facilitate your success, those are personal things. But she did well in that regard. So she knew exactly what to do. I was just there to help her train and get through her long planks, her long ordeals.
You were saying there you were offering encouragement, and when you were telling me the story about when you personally did it, that the encouragement you got was absolutely pivotal in your success and accomplishing the overall records. Like, does your mind drift off in, say, a 10-hour plank? Is there times where you are ready to quit? Are you fully tunnel vision? Do you watch YouTube videos? Like, how does one get through the several hours of a plank?
Well, now you're talking about mindset. Now getting into an area that when you start going as long as I do, and as what Donna has done, as she is now starting to appreciate and certainly respect, the mindset necessary to do this kind of endurance work, especially, Richie, when you're in a static pose. You're not moving around. It's not like you're running a 24-hour marathon where the scenery changes around every corner. You got people moving, running and passing you, and like in a race, right? You're on your own. You're literally by yourself, absent the crew that's there to support you, logistically and cognitively. But you have to have the right attitude and to do that stuff. So what tools you use to do that? For me, it's music. Distraction is the key. And there are tricks that we use to do that. I have what I refer to as my gallery in my mind's eye. And there are three things that facilitate one's mindset when it comes to endurance work. The first one is I am, taking stock of who you are. I feel, which speaks to you can do this, but you're going to need help cognitively, mentally. And the third component is I see. My mind's eye puts me where I need to be. And brother, I'm telling you, that stuff works. There's things in my mind's eye I refer to as my gallery. There are some wonderful paintings in there. I can never sell them. They're always on display, but I'm the only one that can look at them. I can tell you what's in them and what they're about, but they won't make sense to the layperson, you see. And I'm entitled to that. I soak in a lot of stuff, a lot of stimuli I capture in my contact with people, my crew. I grab everything and I store it up in that mind's eye so that when I get under duress, I don't want to give up. I rely on my mind's eye. My mind's eye shows me the successes I've had in the past. And it puts me in pleasant places. It gives me nice thoughts of people who have been nice to me. Those things I enjoy. And it works for me. And before you know it, an hour or two's gone by. How many times have you been in a grocery store, you run into a friend of yours, you sit there and you stand there and you start talking to each other, and then one of you looks at your watch and says, oh my goodness, where has the time gone?
Yeah.
That is what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about now I need hours to go by. And with Donna, it's the same thing. She gets distracted. She has her tricks, and you can talk to her about what those are. She's entitled to those, and she can share those with you, but it's all about distraction. And for me, It's a huge cognitive experience that I go through. On the spin bike, it was hallucinatory to some extent. I still remember some of those experiences to this day. That when you're in the plank pose and you're just looking, you're being fueled by music, which I have a YouTube playlist. I have a channel on YouTube. If you want to know what Hood listens to, there are thousands of songs on there in playlists that you can look at and use as you wish, because all those playlists that are on there have had have had a role in my success, either with the plank or the stationary spin bike. Mostly the plank.
Okay. So when you, first of all, with the playlist, I'd imagine it's quite substantial, maybe over 10 hours long. The only time I'm probably ever going to be stationary for over 10 hours is when I'm on an outrageously long flight, as opposed to maybe doing a plank for 10 plus hours. But you mentioned there all about mindset and being able to put yourself into like a place where time doesn't even matter.
It doesn't.
You're just completely distracted, as you
All
say.
we
And
have is
that
time.
kind of leads, yeah.
And if you don't have that mental conditioning, Richie, what happens is you're going to die. My Marines in combat, when they train to fight. They train to win. Okay, when I go into the plank pose, I'm there to win. It's a battle I have with myself.
They have to overcome a
Yes,
win.
and you have to believe that you're going to win, and you do. And Marines on the battlefield, just like we on the battlefield of life, we don't give up. And unfortunately, a lot of people out there, it gets too hard. They don't have the time, or they make excuses, and that's okay. I can respect that. And I have my critics that'll tell me, it's not healthy to plank for 10 hours. No, it probably is not. But, there are people that just walked across a tightrope in New York City the other night, for the first time. It's what you choose to do. But when you're raising money for a worthwhile charity, and you're raising awareness to a pose that I've since made famous, it puts it all in the right perspective,
Yeah.
And but that mindset, it's got to be strong. It's got to be strong. And Donna's is very strong.
Is there any attribute you can pinpoint to enabling someone having such a strong mindset like that? Is it consistency? Is it, I don't know, like repetition? Like what? Like, is there any secret ingredient to be able to have that mindset? Unlike the majority of people, that when the going gets tough, they think about quitting, and then when it gets really tough, they quit.
Yeah.
Like, is there any way to?
A lot of mindset is vested in how you were raised. That's the I am part of the equation. What experiences did you have growing up that made you survive? Perhaps you came from an abusive family or abusive parent, but you survived, right? So what did you do to make that happen? Maybe one of your parents was an alcoholic, or was into drugs, but you were not. You chose a different path. And so what did you do to make that happen? And you survived. And maybe one sibling of yours didn't, and they went the other way. So what made you different? What was in your head? Those are questions you have to ask those people. It's very personal. But you build that stuff up, and then when it comes time in the fitness industry to do endurance work, you tap on those experiences, and part of it's just what we call mental conditioning. You train the mind to survive, just like you train the body to survive. Combat, fighting, and anything. You train the mind to facilitate you sustaining the plank so that you win. It's a process. And that's why people hire guys like me to help them get through something like that.
Yeah. And your results speak for themselves, I suppose. And one of the last things I would like to ask you about, and we slightly talked about this off air, is that you now do lectures and the topic is mindset matters. Yeah. And I know we've delved into a bit of technicalities surrounding that topic, but like throughout those lectures, is there a few sort of topics or steps that you look to get across to the people attending them, or is it just based around one subject or one certain element of your mindset?
No, that mindset matters. It's and it does matter. It not just with athletes, but it matters in our role as salespeople, fitness directors. Mindset is your mental ability to get done what you commit yourself to do. And that's what it's about. So I tell people, or I try to impart to them, that everybody is capable. You just have to will it to be so. and not get caught up in the in making excuses for yourself or for your company or for your results. It goes back to it's a very intricate process, but it goes back to taking stock of yourself. I feel, and I see myself being successful. Those are the three real points that I touched on at the conference, and were certainly applicable to Donna. And she helped me learn that stuff. I mean, she teaches me some of that stuff, and it's all vested in the yoga culture, but it makes sense. It makes practical sense in life if you apply those principles. So when I speak to people, because you can't make it too complicated, or else they won't understand. It'll be too much to handle. So I keep it very simple and give them just those three tidbits to start with, and it's been successful. Because people really want to hear. Because I get asked all the time, well, what do you think about? Well, you really want to know? It might ruin your day, but I get asked that a lot. So I'm starting to delve into that now a little bit more. But it's really it's a personal thing for me. There's some experiences in there that I'd rather not remember, but they're in my mind's eye for a reason. And again, they all facilitate the fuel that I need to survive a long ordeal, whether it be the plank, the wall squat, whatever I decide to do next.
Yeah. And on that topic, George, is there looking forward, because everything we've talked about is, and just like everything, it's in the past. Is there any objectives? Is there any goals you have, immediate or long term, that you have in the next few years? Is there any records you want to set, or have you thought that far?
Yes,
so far
we have something in the works now. I gave you a hint earlier that the Marine Corps has adopted the plank pose as a alternative to the sit-up requirement in their personal fitness test protocol. I want to help them celebrate that. That takes effect in January of 2020. I'd like to help them celebrate that moment and partner perhaps with the YMCA again to help me make that happen, to draw attention to that, and at the same time raise money for the organization that provides those kind of fitness, health, and wellness services to our service members, not just Marines, but all service members. And if that's the YMCA, boy, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
So I always have my eye on something because I'm not done yet. And to correct you with the age thing now, it's probably appropriate because age is just a number anyway. I'm 61 and a half, and I'm proud of it.
Okay.
And I was born in 1957. But this guy isn't done yet, and I love sharing my experiences with people like you and Donna, and certainly Donna is the one that made good on what I do, and she did it. She's now somebody that can finally do what I do,
which is an inspiring tale within itself.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, George, that's more or less the main bulk of the podcast, and traditionally I finish with a few quick fire questions. So if we can just spew them out, I'll leave you on your bee and let you enjoy the rest of the evening.
Okay.
So, just to get started, what is your favorite film of all time?
Oh boy, probably the one that comes to mind right now is the one with Al Pacino. Well, I'll give you several, but the movie Blow was a good one.
Blow.
Yeah.
Okay. The favorite book you've ever read?
Probably the book I read recently about God, I can't remember the title slips my mind. It's been a while since I read a book. Every time I start reading a book, I get frustrated because I fall asleep and I lose the page. I do, but I used to be a big Danielle Steele fan back in the day, and the first book I ever read of hers, Coming Home. I remember to this day.
Okay. What is the best advice you have ever received?
You can do anything you want. Just do.
Okay. What is your biggest fear? Some people say spiders, some people say death. It's completely the individual's choice.
My biggest fear is perhaps letting someone down that when I thought I could do right by them, whether that be an individual or an organization. That's my biggest fear. I always want to be successful. I don't like to fail for the wrong reasons.
So second last one, what is your go-to workout song?
Wild Side by Motley Crue.
Okay. And last but not least, sum yourself up in 3 words.
Honest, sincere, passionate.
Well said, George. So listen, that concludes the podcast, George. I just want to thank you for getting really detailed and being very open and honest and candid about everything you've experienced up until now, and even giving us some insights on what you hope to achieve in the distant and not so distant future as well.
I'll keep you in the loop. So, I will do that. Absolutely. You're a friend, Richie. I appreciate you sharing the good word. And
no worries at all. And for anyone who's interested in George's work, I'll attach below the podcast. There'll be links to his social media pages, and along with some of his website and other work.
Yeah,
so for anyone interested in what they've just heard,
Facebook are probably the best ways to dial into what I've been up to, other than your own Google search. But if you can do that for me, that would certainly be appreciated.
But George, listen, thanks a million for coming on, and listen, I wish you all the best with your future endeavors.
Richie, you're the best. I appreciate you reaching out to me and setting this up. It was a real pleasure to chat with you and share my story. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.